The demon shaman was most likely Teb Tengri. He was a powerful Mongol shaman near Genghis Khan, also spelled Chinggis Khan. He did not literally collect souls in jars. He controlled souls by controlling fear, fate, and legitimacy. In a world of omens and ancestors, that was real power. Next, I'll clarify what we truly know about him. Then how shaman authority worked in Mongol life. And finally, why a sacred man could still be removed. By the end, you'll know how he rose and why he fell. Contemporary Mongol-era writing is limited and uneven. Even strong sources do not read like modern biography. They preserve actions, rivalries, and court tensions more than inner thoughts. Still, most historians agree on one simple frame. Genghis Khan ruled through law and loyalty, but he also lived inside a spiritual ecosystem. Heaven, spirits, and omens mattered in public life. Where it gets debated is the demon language. That word is often a later moral filter. Enemies and later storytellers tend to darken shamans. They turn political leverage into supernatural horror. So we keep two ideas together without forcing certainty. A real shaman gained unusual influence, and later memory inflated that influence into soul magic. The interesting part is how that inflation happens. Picture a Mongol camp at night. Wind folds the felt walls of the jurs. Horses breathe in a slow, white rhythm. Inside, decisions feel heavier after dark. On the steppe, a ruler's strength was not only military, it was also cosmic. People wanted to know if heaven favored a leader, and a shaman could claim to read that favor. Teb Tengri enters the story as that kind of figure. Not merely a healer, not just a fortune teller for small problems, but a man whose rituals could shape politics. This is the core answer in one line. He controlled souls by controlling belonging. If your soul was safe, your life stayed ordered. If your soul was straying, anything could collapse. Steppe societies often linked illness to the soul's stability. A wandering soul meant weakness and danger. The shaman's job was to retrieve it. That retrieval could look like a cure. Now imagine that idea applied to power. If a clan feels cursed, it fractures. If a rival feels marked by spirits, allies drift away. If a leader seems protected, loyalty hardens. So Teb Tengri's demon aura may be a misunderstanding, or it may be deliberate branding. In many shamanic systems, you do not look gentle. You look dangerous enough to face dangerous things. Here's the part most retellings skip. A shaman's authority is social before it is mystical. He wins by being believed, repeatedly in public. And belief spreads faster than armies. Genghis Khan, early in his rise, needed unity. He had to bind tribes into one disciplined force. That required rules, punishments, and trust. A shaman could support that or disrupt it. So the demon shaman is best understood as a court actor. He interprets heaven's mood. He settles feuds with spiritual weight. And he can bless one path while cursing another. The mystery is not whether people believed him. It's how long the ruler could share that stage. To understand soul control, start with the simplest mechanism. Fear becomes a map. If fear has a ritual exit, people follow it. The shaman provides that exit. A shaman also manages uncertainty. Before a campaign, leaders want signs. Before a marriage alliance, elders want reassurance. Before punishment, a camp wants permission. In Mongolian shamanism, spirits form a hierarchy. There are great spirits, ancestor spirits, and local powers. Shamans are mediators between worlds. That role grants access to decisions. Now place that mediator near a conquering court. Messages arrive daily. A scout brings rumor. A captive brings a warning. A noble brings a complaint. In that pressure, a shaman can do three things. He can diagnose the spiritual cause of anxiety. He can propose a ritual remedy. And he can imply who is to blame. Notice the trade-off. Rituals soothe the camp, but they also create dependency. If only one man can retrieve your soul, he becomes a gatekeeper to peace. And there is another layer. A shaman is a storyteller under oath to spirits. He does not argue policy like a general. He frames policy as destiny. That framing can feel irresistible. A command is one thing. A command backed by heaven is another. People obey faster when disobedience feels cosmic. Now ask the key question. What happens when the shaman's narrative collides with the Khan's chain of command? That's the pivot point. Scene 1, a council gathers. Men sit low, listening for the first voice. The air smells of smoke and milk. A shaman's presence changes the room. He does not speak like a warrior. He speaks like a messenger. If he says heaven is pleased, shoulders loosen. If he hints at anger, eyes avoid each other. Scene 2, a dispute rises between powerful families. These quarrels are never just personal. They decide who rides nearest the Khan. They decide who marries into the ruling line. A shaman can settle such a dispute softly. He can call it pollution from bad intent. He can demand gifts, sacrifices, or apologies. And the losing side saves face by blaming spirits. Scene 3, Teb Tengri's influence grows too visible. This is where later accounts tend to sharpen the drama. Some sources suggest he acted as if heaven spoke through him, and he began to sound like a second authority. In a step court, that is dangerous, because a Khan must be singular. Many voices advise him, but only one voice commands. Scene 4, tension becomes a test. Not a battle test, a legitimacy test. If the camp believes the shaman outranks princes, the empire's spine starts to bend. This is where the soul control idea turns practical. A noble who feels spiritually threatened may freeze. A rival who fears a curse may hesitate. A family might avoid confrontation to protect children. And that hesitation changes outcomes. It is not magic in the modern sense. It is behavioral control, wrapped in ritual. It works because everyone is watching everyone. Scene 5, the court looks for a clean solution. Killing a holy man can backfire. It can look like heaven's own messenger was attacked. So the removal must feel like fate, not politics. Some later retelling describe a staged wrestling match. The language varies across versions, and details blur with time. But the consistent idea is quiet violence. A death that can be described as an accident or contest. When the shaman falls, the camp does not cheer. It exhales, and then it waits for the sky to respond. Here's the core point in one line. Genghis Khan did not end shamanism. He contained it. That matters because empires rarely succeed by banning belief. They succeed by setting rules around belief. The Mongol world remained deeply tied to heaven and spirits. But the center stayed political. Another unexpected layer is how demon language spreads. When outsiders describe step ritual, they often misunderstand it. A trance looks like possession. A harsh chant sounds like threat. A healing rite can resemble a curse. Even inside Mongol society, rivals may weaponize the label. If you want a holy man removed, you call him dangerous, not merely wrong. Demon becomes a social verdict. There is also a subtle logic in soul theft stories. They often appear where power feels invisible. If a leader rises too fast, people ask why. If a rival collapses, people ask how. A stolen soul is an answer that fits the emotional shape. And the Mongols lived with constant emotional pressure. Storms, hunger, rage, sudden death. When life is fragile, explanations become urgent. Shamans provide explanations that can be acted on. One more layer is the empire's need for unity. Britannica notes how limited our near-contemporary record can be, and how later writers dwell on terror and mythic framing. That tendency also shapes spiritual side characters. So Teb Tengri becomes a mirror. To some, he is proof of heaven's closeness. To others, he is proof of steppe darkness. To the court, he is a lesson in competing legitimacy. If you remember only one thing, remember this. In the Mongol world, belief was infrastructure. It moved discipline, fear, and loyalty. And infrastructure must be governed. After the shaman's fall, the system did not vanish. Shamans still served communities. Rituals still marked seasons, journeys, and sickness. But the political center learned restraint. The court could use spiritual language when it helped, but it could not allow an alternate throne of meaning. That shift protected succession. It also protected command during war. In practical terms, the demon shaman story warns elites. Do not let the interpreter of heaven become the author of law. And do not let fear outrank orders. That is what changed. So what was the demon shaman who controlled souls? Most likely, he was Teb Tengri, a real spiritual specialist whose influence became political gravity. His soul control was the ability to steer belief. And belief steers people. And when that steering threatened the center, the steppe produced a quiet correction, not a public execution, a disappearance that could be folded into fate. Now hold on to one last question. If shamans could shape legitimacy inside the camp, what happened when Genghis Khan faced priests and monks in the cities he conquered? Because the next mystery is not on the open grassland. It's behind walls under foreign gods, where the empire had to decide what heaven sounded like. And that decision left traces that still feel unsettled.